This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. This is episode 13. I am Brett. I'm your host. Let's see. So I don't know. It's very early here. I'm just getting packed and ready, doing my trip to Colorado today for the week to see Skylar, my daughter. And I just figured I'd put a podcast or two up here before I took off. Also want to just talk a little bit more about what I have going on. And we're going to talk today. Let's see. I don't even know. I just started this podcast without even knowing what I'm going to talk about as far as dog stuff. Let's talk about sensory stuff. We'll talk about sensitivity, not really, sensory processing, stimulation, how dogs can react on that front, animals, how it relates to the human world as well. It's early. Sorry, guys. I'm a little tired. And also, I've been watching my podcast, right? And sometimes I don't look at the camera enough. I look down. I get it. So, if you have issue with that, I'm going to try. Sometimes it's just I'm thinking of what I want to tell you guys, so it's hard to talk like this to the camera. So pardon me if you're one of those people watching the video version and you kind of see me like looking down like I'm twiddling my thumbs or something. But I'm thinking and I'm trying to give you good words so that you can learn and be entertained and be educated and all that good stuff. So let's see. If you're new to the podcast, my name is Brett Endies. I'm a dog trainer. I'm in the Los Angeles area. I'm host of the show, The Untrainables, which, by the way, will come out this Saturday. I've been telling everyone it comes out last Saturday, and Facebook, who controls all of this, is going to be doing the release on Saturday, September 15th, 2018. I've seen the first couple episodes. They're great. They're helpful, and they're cute, and I think everyone's going to like them. I know I used the word cute. What do you think about that, Jordan? I used the word cute.
It's okay.
It's okay? You'll give me a pass on that one? All right. So watch that. I love everyone's support, and I think it'll be really helpful to anyone who might be struggling with their dogs and wants to make them listen and behave better. Going on, again, I'm going to Colorado in a couple hours here. I'm excited not only to see my daughter in Colorado, is where I lived for a long time. I'm originally from New York, but I spent a good part of my late teens, 20s, and early 30s in Colorado. And my daughter lives there, so I go there quite often. It's good. I like it. It's nice. It's a change of pace. And why I'm really excited, because this is my new thing I've been getting back into after like 30 years, is archery. There's a way bigger archery scene there in Colorado than here in Southern California. So I'm bringing my bow and arrow. I got a case for it. I got it all packed. Hopefully it'll travel well. And we're going to do some shooting there. I'm going to try to take a couple lessons with some of the people out there. Maybe get some new stuff, maybe get a new bow. I'm contemplating it because I want to upgrade a bit. I know it's only been like a few months. I'm ready to get like the next one. But they're expensive, and I might be good to go because I'm shooting pretty well with my regular one. Anyone who sees my shots on Facebook, I post hitting pretty good groups. I don't want to make this an archery podcast. Maybe as we evolve, I'll talk more about that or have guests on related to it. Oh, and we will have guests one of these days. We're just, I don't really have an official studio, so I'm just kind of just doing this solo version here. We're moving to the location hopefully in a few weeks, and then we'll have that set up more there as a permanent place for the show and for my boarding and training and all other facilities we'll have there in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. Let's see. Before I bore you too much, let's move on. Let's talk about... and one other thing. I keep forgetting. The podcast. We need subscribers. We need people to give good reviews and leave, reviews, ratings, all that good stuff. Both on Facebook, Vimeo, we're all over the place, but especially on iTunes. That's how we get noticed. That's how people are going to hear more about this, and it can help more dogs. And that's the reason why I'm doing this. I give out this free content simply because I really just want the message to go further. It's proven to help a lot of dogs and owners in the individual front when I'm doing my work with my clients. So I want to spread this information to help more dogs, because I feel there's a lot of information out there that isn't quite on par with how dogs are seeing it and what's really going to resolve their behavior problems in a way that makes sense to them. So do that. Okay, so sensory processing. Like I said before, it's not meaning sensitive emotions. Emotions actually has nothing to do with it. It's actually just a raw way that input comes into our systems, the systems of animals. It's the way you take in information. Now, most normal people or dogs that are in a balanced state will take in information with a filter. I call it a sensory filter. And what that does is it's sort of like when I equate to like a cup of water. If you put it in the water and slowly, you'll be able to control how fast it comes in and to stop it before it overflows. When a person or a dog or an animal is in a state of high alert where their sensory processing system doesn't have that filter, the water floods and then it just overflows and it becomes an overwhelming state. And you literally get this sensory overload. This is very common in the autism, in spectrum disorders. My daughter, who's on the autism spectrum, and I suffer from things like that as well. It's very challenging to sometimes take in a lot of information all at once. Multitasking is challenging. Busy places, bright lights, loud noises, a lot of activity going on, a lot of transitions. This is all very challenging, and these are the things that trigger this sensory overload because you're thinking about too many things, the information around you is coming at you, and it's just an overload where, normally wired people, if you will, they take it in more one piece at a time, and it comes and goes. So you could be in a sensory balanced state, and those situations are easier to navigate, and that's really what you work on, is containing that or maintaining that in a consistent way through all your challenging interactions, which is very hard to do. That's why meditation helps, and all these ways of creating this balanced and filtered state as a human would navigate regular life. I help my daughter with this. I do this in certain areas as well. And the dogs, this is what's going on with them. And this is what so many trainers, they don't understand. This is not like the dog is consciously making a choice. It is their sensory processing. And that's why with a lot of people, when they have puppies that are always being in a constant excited state, or whenever something happens, something new happens or changes, transitions occur, the dogs are reacting to it and they're thinking it's cute, or the dog is just enthusiastic for everything around it. And then when the dog gets older, they become frustrated and anxious because they're over processing things instead of taking in the information, like I said, a little bit at a time so they can handle it for what it is and make the right choices consciously instead of becoming unconscious by that sensory overload. And again, the goal of training, as much as I sometimes complicate it, it's to pinpoint those times where the dogs are getting in that state, both at times where we don't, necessarily care about the behaviors. I like my dog being super excited to see me. Yeah, but then your dog takes it into a negative overstimulation when it's a guest because they're familiar with you, but the unfamiliar makes them insecure because they lose consciousness. So promoting that more balanced state where they're happy, but they're not overstimulated, that's the difference. And that's what we have to pinpoint, and if you will, get them into this filtered state as in a consistent way, as preventatively as possible, and then we end up rewarding that behavior. That's where the conditioning end comes in. But we have to achieve that balanced, if you will, that sensory filtered, calm state of mind. And that's really what, if you will, a pack leader or somebody who guides the dog through life is supposed to do, is create that sensory order so we can all flow as one. As far as other animals, they can feel each other when they're in that state. And it's like, what's that erratic energy? That vibe is, we got to control this and keep the order, only so we can all, kind of work together integrally, because in nature, there's a lot more at stake. And there's a lot of dogs that will take everyday well provided for lives and treat it as it's going to be the end, and we have to teach a dog how to see it consciously. Now, why does a dog become overstimulated? Sometimes it's just their personality. They're quick to react to stimuli because they're driven. They're good like that if you put them to work. If you let it go or you reward it, it becomes out of control. Or some dogs have lived, on their own, or they weren't provided for, so that hypervigilance kept them existing. They're like, well, wait a minute. I wake up every day and I find my food, if I'm living on the streets, by being aware, and I stay away from strangers, and you can't blame them, right? So we have to, and certain breeds can be a little more like that, but I see a dog's an individual, case by case. And it's really up to us to show them that even if it was a bad past, or they have a history where they got confirmed to run with that, overexcited state as a constant, we have to teach them we're now in the present. And that's just mindfulness training for dogs. We do it for humans. Human anxiety is the over-anticipation or over-assessment of what's going on around you or future events. And that's what meditation does, is creates a sensory filter for humans. It's just we have to, through our busy lives, find time to do that because we can't sit in a cave and meditate all day. A dog's purpose is to just hang out with us and please us. So giving them, and I talk about it in other episodes, the place command. I think it's episode 2. Jordan, what episode did we talk about the place? Do you remember?
We've talked about it in multiple episodes at this point, but Know Your Place is episode number, I believe, 10.
10. Okay, so I think it's called Know Your Place. And I do a lot. I even have my web series that I put out a couple years ago on my YouTube channel, Dog Training LA. I think it's episode 2 for that web series. That's called The Human-Dog Relationship. I show a lot of place training, and it's just showing how to get a dog focused, sensory integrated, and have a sense of utility, a job, that ability to mind-body connect through the commands at these times where they are becoming overstimulated. So I wanted to really explain and describe sensory processing, how that works, how it relates to the human realm. And fortunately, I have that background in psychology, working with my daughter and knowing the things that I sometimes struggle with, to be able to relate to this in dogs. And I can't imagine if you, like, I understand what's going on as a human because we understand our world. As an animal who's trying to deal with a social interaction in public, and they're becoming overstimulated, because they're walking on a leash up ahead and they're high alert, and all of a sudden a dog appears and there's the trigger for your reactivity, and then everything else around them just adds the more flooding of the information they're trying to process. It's hard for them to not feel like they're going to die until we give them a completely different experience right from the moment we start walking them, or whatever scenario, transition, social event we're trying to navigate or help them navigate. So I hope that makes sense. I like to paint a picture because that's it. I mean, if it's what I address, and it really seems to deal with the root cause of these problems, and we're not masking our response to it. We're not avoiding, ignoring the issues. Because when you get a dog sensory integrated, you can engage. You can walk them through the streets and get them to see another dog without reacting. Like, oh my God, I'm alive, and I didn't go to that place because you promoted this calmer state of mind throughout my life, up to and including when we saw a dog or when we meet a guest or any other time where the anxiety or reactions get triggered, right? So really important. And the training I do, we'll talk more into how-tos and how to actually do the technique. I like to give a lot of theory because relating to how the dog's experience is going to make your response to these issues or how you train them make the most sense, instead of doing what I always say is a lot of trainers make a human interpretation of dog behavior, and that's how it's what drives them to make the choices in the training that they do. Okay, so I think we'll leave it at that. Temple Grandin, right? I always do the what, because I always get these afterthoughts. Temple Grandin, she's the lady, they did a movie about her maybe 10 years ago. She's a professor at Colorado State University in animal sciences. She does a lot of work in the human realm too, as far as how, if you have a child with autism, she does a lot of lectures. Dr. Temple Grandin, Grandin. Very informative. She talks about animal stuff, more like livestock and wild animals, but just relate it to your dogs. If you have a child on the spectrum, or you have the ADD, Aspergery, autism type of mind, this might help you relate to what's going on and how to maybe navigate things in a way that can make life easier and you can meet your potential. But she has so many great lectures that helped me a lot when I was a parent. I've met her a couple times, and she's very insightful. She's very forthcoming. And she's older now, but she talks about her experiences growing up and what it's like. And she's very accomplished. She has a doctorate, and she's autistic. But she explains herself and the experience of animals quite well. Really good info. So I think that we'll leave it at that. Again, please rate, subscribe to this podcast. Do it on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. My website is dogtrainingla.com. I have a Patreon. It's Patreon, and then it's the Dog Savant. And keep listening. We're going to keep putting out podcasts. So this is episode 13. Thank you so much, and train your dog.